Hello everyone. In the continuation of a series wherein I combine Coquette with Weirdcore in an aesthetic I like to call coquetamine, I would like to do a coquetamine eBay roundup and sort of talk about just some random things in my eBay watch list that I think will be useful down the line when I'm trying to do another coquetamine look. If it looks like I have the stomach flu, it's because I think I do. Looking a little moist. More moist than usual under these hot, disgusting Amazon lights. But we're gonna power through. I had to get some silliness out of my system on TikTok, and now I have to bring my silly over to YouTube to talk about this ridiculous aesthetic. I'm not in coquetamine garb today. What I was doing on TikTok was kind of in more of the vein of Bim Bazaar, which is my coquetamine's sister aesthetic that is bimbocore and weirdcore combined. More about both of these aesthetics a little ways back on my channel. Oh, I'm so sweaty. I'm so sweaty and my stomach hurts. But let's just jump right into the coquetamine eBay roundup. First on my list is alphabet stencils. Now the reason I put these on here is because if I get just a plain old boring old pink or white certain kind of blouse or skirt, I would probably want to customize it like I did this skirt for a Bim Bazaar look. I just took a boring old plain pink linen cider skirt and stenciled the word parody on it for a Bim Bazaar look. So I would probably want to do something similar to another sort of plain item of clothing to kind of bring it from Coquette into the weirdcore realm if I stenciled something especially weird on one of these plain items. So I've got a lot of alphabet stencils bookmarked in different fonts that I think would be really cool. In that same line of thought, I was bookmarking all these different plain pink and white blouses and tops and skirts and stuff. I also have quite a bit of vintage Victorian revival jewelry bookmarked, and this is kind of like from the 60s and 70s. So Sarah Coventry's good for that. 1928, I don't actually know much about that brand, but I do see it quite a bit on eBay, and it's usually decently priced, but it is definitely Victorian revival. I'm not sure what era it's actually from, but it is quite fun to look for 1928 jewelry on eBay. I've also sort of been looking at vintage lingerie to upcycle or customize, or to just wear on its own if it is kind of incorporated into a weirdcore Coquette sort of look with more weirdcore elements surrounding it. So I've got a couple of different nightgowns, peignoirs, and robes bookmarked. The very thin line you walk with this aesthetic is like, I'm trying to be Coquette, so sweet, demure, darling, sweet, sort of Lolita-esque kind of fashion, but I want to bring it into a weird, sort of surreal, absurd space, but I don't want it to be too creepy or, what's the word, maroot? I mean, like, that's already a thing, so I'm trying to bring it into a different place than creepy cute, and instead bring it into cute surrealism, if that makes sense. So I find that I do bookmark like plain sort of pretty well established Coquette pieces, but will juxtapose them with other elements or upcycle or customize them to be a little stranger, a little more surreal and abstract and absurdist. So that's my thinking there. I've also been looking at crocheted caps. I have an Edwardian crocheted bonnet that works really well, and I just sort of like the kind of crocheted cap sort of situations that I also have in my collection, but you know, more is always better, I think. I mean, if I can find like a cool crocheted beanie on eBay for less than $10 and it's in a different color, that's awesome, an awesome find. So that's sort of how I navigate the world, is if it's cheap enough and if it's different enough than what I already have, it goes in my watch list for me to pounce on later. Similar to vintage crocheted caps, I'm looking at vintage women's hats in general. Now these actually do get very weird if you look in the right places, have the right boxes ticked. I typically search on eBay just sort of like a neutral starting point, like vintage women's hat, and then start to filter out new stuff. I start to filter out stuff over $20. I even can filter by color and material, but usually I keep it pretty simple and sort of start with a big swath of things to look through. Now, the cheap hats can either be really boring or really strange and disgusting and nobody wants them, and those are the ones that I really like to bring in. Like, I got this sort of feather headband showgirl situation from eBay for $9, because who but me would want that on their head? I'm also always looking for vintage lace, doilies, tablecloths, that sort of thing, just like vintage, strange, old textiles to sort of like pin in weird places and that sort of thing. I do also really like to look for wall art, especially when it comes in matching twos, and that is because I do like to loop ribbon around the wall art and wear it on my legs as a sort of chic, sculptural accessory fashion statement. I've done it before with these little cherubs that I had on my legs, and I really loved that. If there's like a, another like duo butterfly, 70s situation that I could like loop with ribbon and wear on my legs, I would love that. In the same line of thought, I also look for ribbon lots, and these are just like big chunks of spools of ribbons that people just sell because they are done with a crafting project or just want to like clear out some space. And strange little suckers like me buy these ribbon lots because I do like just like having different ribbon options. I just think ribbon is a delight. I also am always looking for pearl necklaces. I was lucky enough to have this one custom made for me by a mutual on here, and I love this necklace. I think it's so perfect with the big pearls and the sort of bow interwoven. So pearl is also my birthstone, so I do have a particular affinity for pearls, fake and otherwise. So I'm always on the lookout for lovely large swaths of pearls. I might like sort of fashion some sort of headdress out of like a whole bunch of pearls someday, that sort of thing. Speaking of which, I'm always looking for costume jewelry, crazy weird costume jewelry. I have like a ridiculous, absurd, obscene collection over here, just out of frame. And I'm always looking to expand my collection. I have been feeling like I really lack sort of like close, not choker length necklaces, but sort of like close necklaces like this one in varying colors. I am all about sort of color coordination, and like that's part of the fun of an outfit, is sort of like tying colors together. So when I'm lacking a necklace in a certain color, it kind of feels like a yawning hole in like sartorial possibilities, if that makes sense. So I do like to keep on the lookout for costume jewelry in kind of like a big chunky necklace sort of situation. And then sort of like a fun little random side sort of quest that I'm on is looking for a strange fucked up little stuffed animals. So far I have added these 3 to my collection from eBay, all under $15. Most of them under 10. And I'm also looking for strange fucked up big telephones. Just like these would be sort of like props, as like a photo op props, TikTok prop situation, and those are usually under $30. Now that would be sort of like a splurge in my world. I just got a job, by the way. I am now a bingo host, but payday isn't for another 2 or so weeks. So we've got to be strong and gotta just make do with what we've got for now. But it is therapeutic to sort of talk about my vision, and just with you, that does really help sort of take the itch away from like, oh no, I don't have a chartreuse chunky necklace, what will I ever do? I know that seems silly, but I take fashion and fashion statements really seriously, and this is like a lifestyle, a living, breathing way of life for me. So I do really sometimes feel like a pitter-patter anxiety of like not having like the right color coordination on it. Sometimes it's like OCD, like it's definitely like an OCD thing specifically. We're working on it, we're figuring it out. All is good on the Western Front, but I really did love sharing these like ideas and visions with you today. My coquetamine videos did not do well. Neither did my Bim Bazaar videos. When I was kind of like going into like a deep dive of these aesthetics, they just sort of like landed flat. And I think I sort of maybe was posting too much, like, you know, every other day or so, and I don't think YouTube really likes that. So things will be a little bit more spaced out from me. But I do really enjoy going into this sort of stuff. I do really enjoy talking about like my weird little artistic brain on here. I hope my walking fever didn't get in the way of my coherence too much. And if you have any thoughts about this aesthetic, any sort of recommendations, anything you've been looking at on eBay recently, shout it out in the comments. I'm always so curious to hear from you. And until next time, bye!